Chapter 3, final discussion, the man of color and the white woman. Let's get through these last page of notes here. So we're going to start off on page 55. As you can see, I have it marked up, a nice section here. Page 55. More egocentric than neurotic. Of the second positive loving type. He views everything in terms of himself. He has little capacity for self-sacrifice, and his aggressiveness, as well as a constant need for revenge, inhibits his impulses. His withdrawal does not allow him to have any positive experience that would compensate for the past. Consequently, the lack of self-esteem and therefore of effective security and virtually total, resulting in an overwhelming feeling of helplessness towards life and people, as well as a complete rejection of any feeling of responsibility. Others have betrayed and thwarted him, and yet it is only from those others that he expects any improvement of his lot. So again, what I got from that piece, that excerpt on page 55, others have betrayed and thwarted him, and yet it is only from those others that he expects any improvement of his lot. So again, we're asking our oppressors to care about us, to save us. We need them to recognize, hey, racism is bad, white supremacy is bad, sexism is wrong, misogyny is wrong, homophobia and transphobia, classism, xenophobia, bigotry. This is bad. This is wrong. You need to stop doing this. Once they recognize that what they're doing is wrong, and we can hope and pray and work towards them seeing that this ideology, this mindset, this behavior is wrong, hopefully then they will see their wrongdoing and the wrongfulness in their actions, apologize, make amends, and work towards helping the people that they have done wrong, the oppressed, the marginalized communities, the black man, the black woman, the black child, the black people, people of color, women, LGBT, this can be expanded to multiple marginalized identities and groups of people who have been wronged by society. I said, never truly being accepted by neither society or the world, not being accepted by whites or blacks. You look at Frantz Fanon, it's a psychoanalysis, and throughout the entire book, Fanon is referencing both Anna Freud and Sigmund Freud. And again, the very beginning, the first 5 years of life, from 0 to 5 years old, are very important years. And it's so important in the very developmental stages of a human. And when you look at these psychoanalysis, the psychology of racism, of white supremacy, of oppression. I mean, Frantz Fanon was way ahead of his time. Again, this book is nearly 70 years old, okay? So yes, I had to bring that up. A marvelous description that fits perfectly the characters of Jean Venu. Again, I could be pronouncing this and butchering Venu's name. I apologize. Correct me, please. For he tells us, all it took for me was to come of age and go serve, my adopted motherland in the country of my ancestors, to make me wonder whether I hadn't been betrayed by everything around me. White folk refusing to accept me as one of their own, and black folk virtually repudiating me. That is precisely where I stand. Again, black skin, white mask, we're never really accepted in either world. Whether we're in mainstream society, aka white America, with your oppressors, or if you're in your own black society, black world, black America, black France, black community, people of color community, your own indigenous community, right? Even when you're among your own people, we're not accepted. Because I mean, I've seen this, I've experienced it in my own lived experiences where, like, again, you talk white, you sound white, you're trying to be white. Ooh, ooh. And again, the homophobia, the transphobia that I face from other black people. Then going back out to white America, white society, black skin, white mask. Again, I go back out here and I'm not accepted because I'm black. You know, and also more homophobia and transphobia. But to be honest, I face way more homophobia and transphobia from people that look like me than I have ever from white folks. And that's just keeping it real. And I've been alive for almost for 28 years. So nearly 3 decades. I'm just keeping it a buck. I'm facing oppression and hate from everybody. So what I got from this, again, we're not accepted. Gene Vanu wasn't accepted, rather in his adopted motherland or with his own damn people. An attitude of recrimination toward the past, a lack of self-esteem, and the impossibility of making himself understood. So again, abandonment issues, which I talk about this a lot when I'm talking about mental health, psychology, narcissistic households, dysfunctional households. I talk about this a lot, and I bring this up because on page 56, at the bottom, see, I marked it off. I'm gonna read this. There are 2 processes at work here. I do not want to be loved. Why? Because one day, a very long time ago, I attempted an abject relation, and I was abandoned. I have never forgiven my mother. So again, going back to Sigmund Freud, Anna Freud, Frantz Fanon, again, psychoanalysis. The first 5 years of a human's life is so quintessential, essential. It's so important to our developmental processes, mentally, psychologically, physically, the whole 9 yards. We are a whole being, a human being, right? And when those of us are being born into families where the mother didn't really want you, the father didn't really want you, you don't have that bond with your mother because your mother has whatever issues going on. It could be mental health issues, physical health issues, the relationship, she was not ready to have you, whatever it may be. And same with your father, okay? Same with the daddy, okay? That abandonment takes place early on, and a lot of us suffer from intense abandonment issues because our parents did not nurture us correctly in those first 5 years of our lives. And this is why I am so, like, when people be talking about having kids so freely, I just be sitting back like, this is a big responsibility, and I don't get how y'all go out here popping out kids left and right and then thinking that it's nothing. Like, this is a big responsibility. This is why so many of us have severe mental health issues today, because of the ongoing generational trauma after trauma after trauma, abandonment after abandonment after abandonment. And humans do what? We tend to repeat things, and we tend to do what? Live in cycles. So this book, again, nearly 70 years old, okay? You might as well go on and say this is 70 years old. This is 7 decades ago. Came out in 1952, okay? I'm going to say it again. My grandmother was 7 years old when this book came out. She is 76 today, okay? And in this part, talking about Gene Vanu, again, he's still harboring over the traumatic experience and the abandonment that he felt from his mother as a grown man, as an adult. So going back to Sigmund Freud and Anna Freud and Frantz Fanon with the psychoanalysis, in particular Sigmund Freud and Anna Freud, they did a whole setup on mommy and daddy issues. And, this whole time, Sigmund Freud kept saying, well, it's penis envy, it's penis envy. Really, it's vagina envy. Because if you notice, especially with men and masculine people, cis men in particular, they will hold grudges towards their moms their entire fucking lives and project that off on everybody that they come into contact with, especially with other who? women and feminine people. So that injury that took place as a child in that first 5 years in their childhood, they're carrying that pain and that trauma, and then they're projecting it off on people who didn't do anything to them, didn't hurt them. So that vagina envy or penis envy, that childhood wound, that inner child wound, that abandonment that Gene felt in reference to the book from his mother, he's carrying on as an adult. And now you're running away from love. You're running away from meaningful relationships and meaningful connections. You're literally self-sabotaging all of your relationships. None of your relationships will ever be healthy or functional because of this. And this is why a lot of us, we need to be in therapy. We need to be in counseling. And some of us need to be on medication. And this is another reason why I personally advocate for universal health insurance, health coverage, because everybody deserves health insurance. And the health coverage, especially in the Black community, and regardless, needs to cover mental and physical. So again, since I was abandoned, I shall make the other suffer, and abandoning the other will be the direct expression of my need for revenge. So again, and I see it, men will sit up, men and masculine folks, cis men in particular, but trans men, masculine folks, and don't get me wrong, women and feminine folks, trans women, cis women do the same thing, but this is in particular with men. I'm just putting it for what it is. You're treating everybody else like shit. You're going around sleeping around, spreading diseases, spreading lies, breaking people's hearts, all because you got your heart broke by your mama when she said something to you or abandoned you or did something that was devastating and traumatizing to you. You never got over that. So you're sitting up here carrying that hurt and trauma and then carrying it over to the next, and you're hurting other people, and you're making other people pay the price for what your mama did, or what your daddy did, or what somebody did to you. Like, that's the problem. Nobody's healing. Okay, that's what I got out of that. I know I took it far, but that's what I got. So page 56, abandonment issues brought on by his childhood trauma plays out into his adulthood, into the relationships that he's trying to create. Lack of self-esteem. Okay, lack of self. You don't even have a sense of self. Okay, always pessimistic, hypersensitivity, etc. And then also going deeper, when you think about relationships, people who are always essentially dismissive avoidance, right? They want love, but when love comes to them, they do everything in their power to self-sabotage it and ruin it. So it's like, oh, I crave love and affection. I crave a deeper connection, but I'm going to do all of this self-sabotaging behaviors to push this person away from me so I can abandon them before they abandon me, all back to that original abandonment wound that took place when you were a child. Again, mental health is important. We need therapy and counseling severely, ASAP. All right. And then, like I said, men, masculine people tend to enact revenge on women and feminine people who didn't cause the original wound. And then women and feminine people will also enact damage and cause harm onto men and masculine folks based off of that father, that daddy, etc. not being there. Like, a lot of us have mommy and daddy issues and abandonment issues. Let's just call it for what it is. Page 57. Lack of self-esteem, yes, certainly. The lack of self-esteem as an objective worthy of love has serious consequences. For one thing, it keeps the individual in a state of profound inner insecurity, as a result of which it inhibits and distorts every relation with others. Again, when you look at a lot of Black folks, brown people, people of color, marginalized people, our self-esteems tend to be very low, okay? Because your oppressor is spending all their time telling you that you're inferior, you're stupid, you're ugly, you're irresponsible, you're uneducated, you're not intelligent. Everything negative in the book your oppressor is constantly throwing at your way, on top of the fact that they are systemically denying you opportunities to better yourself, denying you resources so you can actually live, thrive, and prosper, on top of the psychological ramifications of being told over and over that you are inferior. And that's in the books, that's in the social media, that's in the movies, that's in the music, that's in the education system. Look at our history. Look at how history is typically taught, not only in France, not only in America, but across the world. It's from the oppressor's lens. So of course, every time they talk to you about people that are like you or your culture, what are you being told? Oh, you guys were savages, you're stupid, you're uneducated, you were slaves. Anyways, moving on. This is psychological. This is why this is a good book. All right. And then the relationships that you have with others are also forever distorted because of these harboring trauma and so much self-loathing and low self-esteem and inferiority complex. Like, oh my God, and all of this insecurity, and then you're projecting it off on each other like all day. That's why it seems like we hate each other, because we hate ourselves. Again, people that love themselves are not going to be going around projecting negativity. Okay, I'm just putting it for what it is. Energy is real. Okay, it is, as an object, capable of arousing friendship or love, that the individual is unsure of himself, herself, themselves. Okay, the lack of effective self-esteem is to be found only in persons who in their early childhood suffered from a lack of love and understanding. Like I said, those first 5 years are so essential to the developmental stages of a human being. Black men, masculine people, lack of self-esteem, pushing away people, hurting others who didn't harm them in revenge against the people that hurt them. Thus, the constant seeking of approval from their oppressors and abusers. And that's just not black men and masculine. That could be used with everybody. But again, in particular, because we're talking about the man of color, Jean Benu as being one of the main people that he's pulling this psychoanalysis from in the book. That's why, all right? So like, for example, black men, black masculine folks, think about it. We will kill each other left and right, shooting up entire nightclubs, airing out the entire parking lot, doing drive-bys on the highway. Like, how many times over the past years, just this year alone, we've already lost numerous rappers from being murdered on highways in Atlanta. Like, people are being killed. But in the same breath, you're not finna defend your community against these racist cops. You're not finna defend your community against the Proud Boys and the militias and the Trump supporters and the straight up racist white supremacist bigots. You're not finna defend your community on that, but yet you will kill each other over territories that you don't even own, over neighborhoods that you don't own, over drugs, over tennis shoes, because you thought he or she or they was talking to your person. Like, that's what I'm talking about. This is some deep psychological shit. Like, we hate ourselves, we hate each other. So what I'm giving you is a direct reflection of what I feel about myself, okay? And then when you see how black men and masculine folks treat each other, and then you see how they treat women and feminine folks, child, okay, you're hurting people that didn't hurt you. But like I said, you don't have the same energy, you don't have the same effort, you don't have the same smoke for your oppressor and your abuser. Make it make sense. Thus trying to imitate the beliefs and behaviors of their oppressor. And I talk about this all the time, so let's read about this real quick. The lack of effective self-esteem always leads the abandonment neurotic to an extremely painful and obsessional feeling of exclusion. Again, you don't never feel a part of anything. You're not really a part of the black community. You're not a part of the mainstream community. You're not a part of the world. Okay, because you're always othered.